OHC stands for Open Healthcare Network. We are a team of enthusiastic developers and contributors committed to building open technology, especially in the healthcare domain.
The ratio of number of doctors and nurses in India is not comparable to the actual number of people who is required. The more time we are able to save, that's the time they can spend with the patients.
OHC built Care, which is our open source flagship product. We identify hospitals and connect them to the closest care center. The doctors or the specialists get a complete picture of how the patient is doing, and if the doctors feel that they need to be moved, then they have a referral system through the software that tracks the journey of the patient.
I'm not doing the miracles, but I'm just giving some tips of life-sustaining techniques. So that's how driving me and our team more and more.
Early on, we were very fortunate to have active participation from healthcare professionals. They're the ones telling us what to build, how to build.
The engineer showed me how I can contribute on GitHub. I am writing the special issue of I need this button there so that I can have better accessibility of shifting a patient. Within 1 week, I see a link to the finished product. That is when I really saw the magic.
We have more than 400 people contribute from around the world. The developers were very interested. They were like, okay, there is a request from a doctor. We have to go solve it for him. Then they pick up the issue, then they actually go and build it.
We have seen the quality of code improve immensely with Copilot. So it's almost like everybody's gotten their own personal assistant.
I just have to say what I want in a few comments and it's able to write out the entire thing for me. It's like another human helping me out. Having everything in open source from day one actually improved the trust.
When OHC came in, suddenly I realized that the small decision I make, the small issue that I file, now it's impacting millions.
This healthcare transformation created a very significant positive impact to every citizen of India.
Friday. Welcome, Uli team again. Denny, Kaustubha, how are you?
Good, good.
Doing well, thanks. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. And thank you again for accepting the invitation and being here. Super excited to learn more about TittleMade and about the project itself. So I'd say we kick off from the very beginning. Denny, maybe you can explain to us what TittleMade is to begin with, and then we can talk a little bit about the project specifically. Would that work?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Hey, my name's Denny. I'm the co-founder and the product engineer at Tattle. We are a civic tech organization based out of India. We look at India-specific challenges to online harms, and we build open source software and open data set to try and understand and better respond to these India-specific challenges. Then we have certain focus areas. When we started off, we were purely looking at misinformation in the Indian context. Lately, we also look at content moderation and hate speech and those type of areas. How Uli came about is through some of the work that we were doing on misinformation. We were collecting a lot of data from Indian social networks to try and make sense of it. And one of our goals was to open it up as an open data set for the community. But what we had observed was that there was a lot of hate speech within that content. And we didn't want to just open it without any filters and amplify that content. That got us thinking about this is content that's not text, it's images and videos. And a lot of the content within it is in multiple Indian languages. So it was not very straightforward to filter that out automatically. That led to us looking at this space of content moderation or filtering certain kind of content. That's the genesis for the project Uli. Then Tattle, along with another organization in India called Center for Internet and Society, we worked on it together. The project has, I think largely the mission is to provide some kind of collective response to online gender-based violence. And it takes multiple forms. So there, at the very core, one of the projects is to involve the community in crowdsourcing slurs in Indian languages. For any sort of like content moderation, one of the first things you have to do is know some keywords that are to be filtered out. And these kind of lists exist in English and other non-Indian languages, but we didn't find a lot of such work in Indian languages. So we started with crowdsourcing slurs in 3 Indian languages: English, which is like a mix of Hindi and English, then Tamil and Hindi also. And we also got a lot of annotate people who, on the receiving end of this kind of violence on social media to annotate certain textual data for us. And based on which we were also able to build a machine learning classifier to detect online gender-based violence. So moving ahead of just like word-based matching, we also were looking at just entire a paragraph or a string of text and trying to figure out if it has online gender-based violence. And the very user-facing tool that we have is a browser extension that kind of combines these two tools and these two, let's say, resources and packages it in a user-friendly manner. The idea with the browser extension is that as you are scrolling through the web on your laptop, if any of these slurs pop up in your feed, they get redacted, they get hidden in some way. And it also provides you a way to crowdsource to the slur list, because as the nature of hate is always evolving on social media, so we need some way to keep the list up to date. So as you come across any word that's not on the list, you can just select the word, right click and crowdsource to Uli, and that word gets sent to us. So that's our way to keep the slur list growing. There's a lot of other stuff that we're also doing in terms of trying to make it easy to access on smartphones, or also looking at images and videos as sources of problematic content and not just text. But I think largely the goal is to build these like small foundational building blocks that can be used for higher level content moderation and just making sure that everyone's feed is.
I'm sure for anyone who's watching this and is work on any kind of content moderation or working with online communities knows that this is an incredibly massive problem, and one that is so difficult to deal with. And for so long, it's been such a manual procedure, right? To work content moderation. Never mind, I've unfortunately had the pleasure of working on that space before, so I have a lot of respect for anyone that's still sticking it out. But love to see that there are tools that are helping automate some of that to a degree, because it does take a lot of psychological safety.
I think that has been the constant experience just by talking to people who are active on social media. We see that there's obviously the people who just tuned out of social media because of this kind of content. And I think that's also not a good thing, because they're losing participation from a very diverse set of people. And that's in itself is a bad thing. But I think we've also noticed that there's some people who rely on social media for their livelihood or for just the general being part of their work or whatever. So they don't have the luxury of tuning out. In which case they have to subject themselves to this, and that's also not a good thing. And like you said, it is a complex problem, and it's not something that tech can make vanish. Sorry, it's not something tech can make disappear, but we're just trying our best to address it in little ways.
Hopefully, exactly. Like this kind of work is so important, and these tools as they evolve, we still need the humans like you and Kaustubha to be here and actually work on the projects themselves. So, Kaustubha, I don't know, do you remember using this tool before you actually came to work for the team? And I have to touch a little bit about your background too. It's so exciting to me that you actually were part of a program that GitHub, and now you're working for this amazing project. So if you don't mind just real quick telling us a bit about that, and then just how you were introduced to the project, that'll be awesome.
Yeah, sure. I actually knew about Tattle before I thought about being a part of their work. So I think I was just doing some reading on the internet about misinformation and information harms, and I found Tattle. And I came across the Uli project, and I decided to just test it out. And I still do use Uli, the plugin. And I really like the entire concept and the attempt to help users deal with an everyday problem of online abuse. yeah, so that's how I knew about Tattle and about Uli itself. Yeah, and then I think a while soon after, I came across the community manager program at GitHub, and I noticed that Tattle is one of the DPGs that was selected. So I thought this would be a great way for me to also find a way to contribute to work like this and help also build a community around it. So yeah, I think it's just like married into me applying and getting to work and volunteer my time for about 6 months. And yeah, I got lucky enough to be a part of them full time.
I love it. I love it that you were someone who was actually benefiting from the project. Like you were using the project itself, and then now you get to be a part of building it and continuing to grow that community. That's fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, I think that is the ideal FOSS pipeline where you want people who are actually users and user of the product because they have a lot invested in it and invested in its improvement.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Denny, I don't know. Can you take us around the repo, like the site? Let's take a look and see the project itself. Then maybe we can
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the tech stack to build it. And I love it if we have time and you're able to give us like a quick film, show us how it works. That'd be great.
Yes, my screen is still shared, right? I think I'll walk you through the different components of it because like I said, like there is, of course, there is a tech component, but a lot of the project is very human interaction driven and not everything is on GitHub and not everything can be on GitHub, right? So I'll walk you through certain artifacts that give you a sense of how the project is organized. The repo is mainly the repo of the slur list itself, right? Sorry, of the browser extension. And inside the browser extension, the code, we do have the slur list and the slur list is open, right? So that's also why it's on GitHub. So if you, I think, go to the browser extension folder and go to the plugin, there should be somewhere here, the actual slur list as well. This might take me a while. Just give me a second.
That's okay. And I would imagine that's another sort of like contributions too, right? Especially when there are so many different slang words and every day I feel like I see some awful new thing.
No, absolutely. We have different ways to contribute to that, add to that. Kaustubha constantly does these online collaborative sessions where we get on a call and people will annotate or add slurs. But we've also added that feature into the browser extension itself so that you don't have to get on that call. You just use your browser as you usually would, or rather you browse the internet as you would usually do. And if you encounter a slur, you can just contribute. But there are many other ways also to send your slurs to us in some way or the other. So this is the slur list, which is now on the repo. It's organized by the 3 languages that it's in. Of course, you can just make a PR directly to the repo to add a slur also. But honestly, that's not one way we look at contribution on this repo because I feel like it would be hard to manage like people adding individual slurs. So for them, I think a better way might be to go attend one of Kaustubha's sessions or use the browser extension to share it with us. And also, if you somehow happen to have a corpus of these slurs already with you, then in that case, just hit us up and we'll figure out a way to include that into the slur list. There is also the the machine learning model that we built. That's also on Hugging Face. You feel free to play around with it. The idea here is that you can send it a text and it will tell you whether it has any online gender-based violence in it or not. Other than that, I think now maybe I can give you a brief demo of the project itself, because I think some of these concepts are very abstract and it's actually a lot more fun to see it in action through the browser extension.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so you can go to uli.tattle.co.in. That's where the project is hosted, and there's the prominent button to add the extension to the browser. We are currently supporting Chrome, Brave, and Firefox. If you click on the button, it will take you to the appropriate store. You can just add the extension to your machine. I'll just pin it so that it's prominently visible. Actually, no, I can't pin it. Right. When you go to so once you have installed the extension on any browser or any web page that you visit, you'll see this small Uli icon. Let's start by activating it. This is basically a way to start your account and just maybe hit refresh for the sake of to reset the state. Just a heads up, like the actual slurs in the project can be very serious, and it's like you always have a hard time doing Uli demos because you don't want to subject random Wild West internet onto a live stream. So we will just work with some of the more mundane words like crazy for the sake of our demo, because I think you can still get a sense of what things are like. So actually, as you can see, it's already enabled. I should disable it to show you like what it looks like by default. So as you see now, I'm just, let's say, casually browsing through the web. I'm on the Wikipedia page for the article on insanity. If I enable this, the word crazy is in our slur list right now. when you enable it for the first time, you will notice the word crazy has disappeared from your feed. Right? Now, this is the extension works in a way where, even if you have an infinitely scrolling feed, it will get redacted from your display. I'm just going to show you a brief example here. So if I search for crazy on Instagram, you'll notice that, sorry, was it not crazy? Maybe I need to refresh, let's just say. Yeah, you notice the word crazy disappears from the feed. As you keep scrolling, it will process that text and make it disappear basically. One of the features, it's actually an open issue that a contributor is working on, is that you should be able to hover on these redacted markers and see what, if you want, you could see the slur, and you could also see why a slur was hidden. So what is the category of abuse it has? Is it like a gender-based slur, or is it a religion-based slur, or is it caste-based slur? You can get more context about that slur. And all those contextual data is also contributed to people who contribute. The other thing is obviously that there is, of course, the quote unquote Uli slur list, but we understand that people might have different requirements for their own feed. So you can also add your own, like a local slur list, right? So let's just say I want to add the word lunacy here. And I'm just alerting you all that the word lunacy is here, right? So if I hit save, you see how that word also disappears from your feed. So that's how to enable the slur replacement and how to use your own local slur list into the extension. What you can also do is, I would say, you can contribute slurs to Uli from the browser extension itself. So let's say you want to add the word sane to Uli. You can just select the word, right click on it, and then you could go to Uli and crowdsource slur word. When you click on that word, you get a notification that the word sane was added to Uli. And if you go here, you'll notice the word is in your local list of slurs. And then you can add a certain metadata to the slur list, right? So you can specify what is the level of severity, is this a casual slur or not, if it's an appropriated slur, right? So if it's a group, if it's a slur that has been reclaimed by the community in an empowering way, you can mention that. You can write a short description of what makes it problematic. I think we feel like this is a good way to educate people who might not know why a word might be problematic. And then obviously you can also add certain categories of why this particular word is. Let me just quickly mute my notification.
So all of this that's happening on the screen right now, like when you go through the process of adding the list, that's adding it to your local instance of Uli, or part of the program?
Good question. I can see the confusion here, but so when you add slurs on this page, this text field is purely adding it to your local machine. But when you do let's say right click and Uli crowdsource slur word, that goes to our server. And so if you do make a change here, right, if you want to add metadata or something, that is pushed to the server. So this is our way to keep the slur list growing. When you push this to our server, that doesn't immediately get synced to every client's machine, right? So it's not, if I crowdsource the word sane from Uli, it's not going to show up on Kaustubha's machine. It's going to stay local to me. But our goal is that we somehow make a way to, once all the slurs are crowdsourced centrally, to have some way to make it available to the rest of the community also. So we are figuring out how do you do that regular periodic cleanup of the slur list, or just making sure that all the crowdsourced data can now then go back to the community in some way. That's still an open problem for. Yeah, I think with that, the demo is over.
Got it. No, that's super interesting. And I was thinking as you're going through the demo and the fact that you're able to actually create your own personal browsing session. There are so many applications where I think that will be so good. Maybe not so much within the context of online gender-based violence, but in so many things. There's definitely a ton of things that can be done. What happens with the data that's being collected there? And do you have ways to visualize that? I wonder, as you're getting this influx of information, be a new words or a new genre of openness.
No, I think this is one of those next steps for us. So so far we've been focusing on just getting people to contribute to it. But I think there is enough data that now that we've also been wondering how can others, right now it seems like a very solitary activity when, let's say, I am on my own crowdsourcing to the slur list, right? And actually, one of the good things about the sessions that Kaustubha does is that only, right? That's an excuse for community members to come together in a room and feel like, okay, this is a collaborative exercise and it's not something you do on your own. But I think we would like to extend that to all users of Uli, right? So let's say I am not part of those calls, but there should be a way for me to also see what are the other people doing and what kind of slurs have already come in. So yeah, we have a lot of open-ended ideas of how we would do that. Some centralized repository which you can actually search through as well, and to see what kind of contributions have made in, what is the meaning of each slur. we would like to do that. It's pending as we speak.
Thank you. No, there's definitely, and it's amazing that you can already envision all of those expansions for Uli. There is this incredible tool. And so right now you are engaging the community and you're having this like working sessions. There are other ways that they can contribute. I don't know if Kaustubha, can you tell us a little bit about how the community can get involved beyond you can contribute to the repo? Like, I'd love to know how your community has grown. And then also for the folks who are watching this now and they feel a calling to participate in the project.
Sure. We do conduct crowdsourcing sessions where the idea is that, as Denny mentioned, we have a group of people who are annotating our slur word. And it is a great way to bring the community together because we work with researchers and activists and people from marginalized genders who are actively in the space, encounter the space, and, they tackle this on almost an everyday basis, and they're the most familiar with it. So it's been a great space for them to discuss annotations, discuss their experience encountering these words. And so if there's people in these spaces who'd like to add to our list, maybe provide us with new words in new languages, please do reach out because it's a great way for us to also improve our plugin and also our understanding of the evolving terminology and what it really means in an everyday basis.
And we can find all that going to the Uli website, the uli.co.in, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Slack might maybe not.
As far as maybe the path to contribution, can maybe talk us a little bit through that, Denny, like how the show, maybe more the technical contribution. And
Right.
And then I would like to ask you about how you're measuring impact, or if there is any, is that something that's already happening? Like, I know, hard question.
Kaustubha, it's a hard question, but if you want to take, you can take it. Otherwise, I'll try to address it. No.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and resume our conversation.
Yeah.
From the
So,
community.
I feel like there is a lot of ways to contribute to the project, regardless of where your skill sets are or what your interests are. I think that we would love to hear from anyone who's just even remotely interested in the project, right? Because I think we will find a way to include you in the project. There's a lot of things to be done, right? Even if like you are active in online spaces where you see a lot of online hate, that could be a source of data for us. If you are a developer, obviously you can contribute to the project. But also if you just want to get involved in this work and help us find slurs and help us crowdsource slurs, even something as simple as installing the plugin and using it and filing bug reports, there's all sorts of ways to get involved in the project, not just tech. And we would actually appreciate a lot of non-tech contributions as well. Strictly speaking about the tech work, there are two ways to get involved. There's, of course, the GitHub issues that we've created. Go to the issues. There's a lot of open issues. And even if something remotely seems interesting, just comment there and you reach out in to help you cross through the next step. The other thing of interest might be the wiki that Andrea had given you earlier. What we have done is, those issues are obviously like short time-bound project. We definitely want to see certain long period explorations using the resources, right? So on that wiki, we've curated certain issues that are open-ended problems, right? So there might not be an immediate solution for them, but it would just be nice for someone who's a researcher looking at online hate, or someone who's just interested, right? Like they're from a community that gets a lot of online hate and you want to use those resources to do something about it. So there are some open-ended projects you've listed on the wiki that could be a good starting point for you. Of course, I'm sure you might also have ideas, in which case you can also reach out and we'll figure out how Uli can be of use to you. But to reduce that gap, we've also thought of some ideas and listed it on that wiki. That might be a great way to get involved. But yeah, like I said, if you see any kind of affinity to the project, just reach out in any ways and we'll figure out a way to get back to you and somehow involve in the project.
That's awesome. And you do have a community Slack space, so folks can go ahead and join. Just click on the link. I'll post the link on the comments, but you can also go to gh.io/Uli-Slack, request to join their Slack. So if you're thinking, maybe you have a specific set of skills and not sure how you can apply it in this world, but this work calls to you, by all means, definitely have this conversation with this awesome folks. I love it, like how you're always looking for help. There is always a need.
Yeah.
For legitimately any and all collaboration. So that's wonderful. Before we move on a little bit about like how you're seeing this landscape changing and it talk about terms of impact, Denny, this is such an interesting and very social impact driven projects are not something that is not very common, right, for people to take on to begin with. I wonder if you have any advice for people who are thinking of doing any kind of development for good, anything like, be it in this project or another, and to speak to your personal motivation, obviously, because it's a labor of love most of the time. Really, people start
Right.
doing them
Yeah.
because they care about the problem.
Yeah, I think that's one. That's why I tackle. It's not that open source ethos or open source philosophies are the best way to solve all problems, but we do borrow heavily from some of the culture that has evolved in the open source community. And I think one similarity that might be there in the FOSS world and also the social impact space is that, that phrase scratching your own itch, where that you need to, it has to be something that you anyways care about. And you just, it's the problem that appeals to you, or you have an interesting approach to tackle it. And that's how you start writing that first line of code for your labor of love project. And I think that's similar for a project like Bully as well. It somehow has to be of interest to you in some way. When Tattles began, it really began not as a very thought out attempt at making a company. Me and the co-founder were just discussing about how much misinformation we see on WhatsApp, and is there something we could do about it? And not even is there something we could do about it. We just started talking to fact checkers and researchers to see what is the problem and why do we see it so much. And the first piece of code we wrote came out of that, some of those early conversations. So I think, yeah, that would be my advice, regardless of whether you think of it as like a social impact project or not. If there's something that bothers you about the world, and if you have those any sort of skills, maybe a good starting point is that, like, how do you begin addressing some of those problems that bother you?
Thank you so much for that. And I know obviously we're here to talk about Uli and what an important tool it is. And I appreciate the demo. Quickly, could you tell us about some of the other projects that Tattle is working on, just for that scratching your own itch? Maybe someone browser extensions is not their thing, but there might be some else you're working on.
Yeah, no, I think so. Uli is a very prominent project for us, and there's a lot of work happening there. But we also have some work around synthetic AI and the misinformation caused by it. So we are part of a project called Deepfake Analysis Unit. This is a consortium of fact checkers and media forensic experts, where Tattle's building some of the collaborative platform where all these people can come together and evaluate media items together and help decide whether they have an element of manipulation using synthetic AI or not. This also, it's a very high level project built on top of a project called Saluda that we have, which is a DPG that came out of our work on misinformation. Because as I was saying, a lot of misinformation in the Indian context is in the form of images and videos, as we wanted some specific tooling that can help make sense of large amount of videos and audios and images. The way, let's say, the way you can query text, I ideally would to make it so easy to query media items as well. So Deepfake Analysis Unit is one project that's built on top of Faluda, trying to make workflows that fact checkers and journalists and media forensic experts use, make it easier for them to address a lot of misinformation that comes to them. We also have a multiplayer game called Viral Spiral. This again came from, that always feels like hard to justify, but it came out of some of the work we were doing around misinformation. The genesis of it is that I was doing this unofficial WhatsApp group where I would ask my mother and her friends to send me media items that they receive on WhatsApp, and I was helping them find if this is true or not. And what I learned from that process is that how hard it is. I think we take it for granted that being able to find the truth on internet is like something you can just do. But closely looking at the steps that I was taking made me realize that it is actually it's a skill you have to learn. You don't just are not born with it. And so I started looking at it as to teach that skill or just inherit some of those lessons in some kind of a fun way. And I usually started talking to this friend who's a comedy writer, and we came up with this idea for a multiplayer game where you role play this parallel world where you take on certain identities and biases, and you start sharing news with each other, and you get to see how that affects the world and how that affects your biases and prejudices. So it's an exploration of all that. But yeah, like I said, like we do look at us as like someone who's working in the online harm space, and we don't really go in with, oh, this is what I want to do for this. Whatever it evolves organically, we follow our curiosity and try to build something out.
I love that. I want to play this game, but more importantly, I want to share with my family. I'm in Latin America, like WhatsApp is our main. That is how we'll communicate, and
yeah.
there was up with my auntie and my uncles and some of my cousins. And I love y'all if you're watching this. Wow, it's painful sometimes. Some of the things that get shared there, and it's hard to be the one person sends police that comes in every time. And it's, what did you read that? Why are you sharing
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, no, I think that was actually also one of the things where there's a limit to how much that kind of behavior will cause reflection. And we're hoping that the game, it provides like a safe environment for you to role play certain identities. And maybe as you are doing this, you get a chance to reflect on your behavior and ask yourself why you're sharing something and shouldn't be shared. Yeah.
100%. Folks, this is why this work is so important. Listen, it can affect you in a very personal level indeed. How can people contribute to, I see that you're in GitHub sponsors, and I know that there is I think you're working with the Mozilla Foundation, but maybe we should share that as well, the sponsors link. Folks, if you're interested in definitely supporting this work, there is a sponsors link on the GitHub repo. Any other space where you think for like financial contributions to the sustainability of the project?
No, I think I'm generally talking all new things GitHub's doing. And so when this was announced, this program, I just applied for it just because that's all I do on GitHub, right? See what new is. So yeah, so we've not really heavily publicized our sponsor stage, but that's an experiment to see. Our work is very, very tied to community, and even one of the main stakeholders for us is the citizens and community members. So crowdsourcing or some kind of a GitHub sponsor thing does seem very relevant to our use case. So setting up the sponsor page was just an experiment in that, and I think that's the only way right now to contribute financially. So please feel free to go for it.
Oh, for sure. So by all means, folks, definitely take a look at how you can contribute, get involved with the community also, maybe start participating in some of crowdsourcing events that Kaustubha is leading. And then if time is not of the essence, then do your time, contribute your time. But if not, then go and sponsor this project. This has been really enlightening. I can't wait to see how the project evolves. Now I have to ask the question that's in my mind, and I work in communities and I work in a field that's also pretty close to impossible to measure how you're impacting things. Because I feel like we're gardeners in a lot of ways. We're planting seeds everywhere. And 3 years from now, we might see something that was a direct result from something that I did. But I don't know, in terms of like how you're seeing the long-term impact of the project itself in the communities, can you speak a little bit of that, and how do you see that? How you're measuring that? And this is such a complicated landscape.
There is a assumption which is slightly validated, but it's not a given truth, which is that there is a value to a list of slurs. So anybody who builds any sort of community moderation tool, you always have in your source code or like some in your database some problematic words that are like the first layer to protecting this. And for us, if you were to strictly speak in terms of metric, the how many slurs we've contributed or how many slurs we've gotten together, that's like a metric. Right? So we started with 0 and we are now, I think, around 700 or plus, right, Kaustubha? Yeah. So that's a metric that we're looking at. And the goal to engage the community is to just keep growing that number. Obviously not chasing that mindlessly. Like we do want to maintain a certain quality to the slur list and make sure that they are actually useful. So that's one metric we're chasing. The other is the use of our slur list by other entities. Last year, there was a group called IFF had used our slur list to monitor content on YouTube and figure out like problematic aspects on it, right? And they published a report or an article on it, and they had credited us. That's how we came to know it has actually been used. Our use of our slur list for, I would say, like higher level purposes, actually tracking hate or addressing hate in some way. That is an exciting use case for us. We haven't officially gotten any confirmation from any platform, but we have been actively sharing our slur list with platforms as well to see if they find it useful. And because I think the browser extension is one individual way to protect your own feed. But if some of this list actually make it to a platform's trust and safety team and get baked into the platform itself, maybe that's a win as well. We're trying to crack it. We haven't gotten a validation of it yet. I think there are. One of the limitations of making it open is that we can't really track if anyone's used our slur list. If someone's copied from our GitHub. Or actually, let me see if I can find this page on our Uli website from where you can copy paste certain slurs and put it in your. So, Instagram has this hidden word feature now where you can mark certain words as something that you don't want to see in your comment section. So we created like a UI through which people can just copy paste it. So those we're not really tracking if anyone's using it at all. So we won't know for real how many people are using it. But yeah, I think that it would be nice if somebody tells us that, oh, we saw it and we used it for a certain purpose, but we don't have a number on that.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to measure, but I'm sure, again, like that silent impact is out there. But listen, if you're watching this and you're like, yeah, I actually used it and this is the list, please, by all means, leave it in the comments. Reach out to the team, let them know, and go on GitHub and sponsor them, please. Or at the very least, let's leave some stars for the projects because it's such important work. Thank you so much, Denny. Kaustubha, thank you so much for being here today. And I have one final question, especially for you, Kaustubha, because there is such an interesting, I love the dynamic of how you came to be a part of the project. But folks, now everyone is so busy. And if you're a student or you're starting your career, usually those are the last type of things that you're thinking about because it's like, I got other stuff. I got to work. I got to look after my family. I got to study. I don't know if there is anything that you can share, like, how do we inspire folks to keep getting engaged and want to be a part of this project besides the opportunity to be so impactful, which is obvious? But if you can leave us with some words of wisdom, I don't know.
I don't know about wisdom, but I think it's really just chasing your curiosity. There's so many things I feel that all of us care about. Maybe it's climate change, maybe it's online abuse, whatever it is. And if you find yourself reading about it often, you find yourself tracking what's going on in a specific space, I think the next step really is, oh, what can I do right now about it? And that's how you start finding out about programs like the GitHub Community Manager program or just other ways to volunteer with organizations. I've even done cold emails. It's worth a shot. And it doesn't matter if you're like 10 years into work or like you've just got out of college. I'm still early career and it's really about, okay, I care enough that I'd want to make time for this in spite of everything. So yeah, just go for it. Give it a shot and it might land up into something exciting. Like my job.
And I also have a small thing to add, which is that Kaustubha is a lawyer by training, and then she also does this. I have a training in technology, but also design, and the other co-founder is trained in public policy and technology, right? So we are a very interdisciplinary team, and I feel that's also one thing to ask yourself. If you feel like you're someone who is interested in technology, but then you're also reading about history or about gender or about some other interest, and I feel like for the longest time growing up, I always tend to these are two different aspects of your life, right? Like you do coding at work and then you study about these things that you're interested in, right? But as a young person, pay attention to these interests and actively seek out interdisciplinary teams and projects. And because you'll often find that brings some, lack of alienation in the work and the life you lead. And you will inevitably discover projects that might be closer to your heart. And you don't have to have that split between your this is my interest of reading and this is my work, which is coding. I feel like you think it exists, but it might not exist necessarily.
I feel like that advice was for me. Thank you. That's so important. Absolutely. Break those silos and bring your whole self to work. And what that's the dream right there is to find the perfect marriage of all your interests and the things that really make you happy while scratching your own curiosities and doing something good. So thank you so much. You folks have been so great to have you here today. You'll have to come back. I want to play this game live. I don't know if we can do it. We're playing the game.
That would be awesome. That would be.
I think I'm gonna bring Yesh, who's actually our new program manager in Bengaluru, and let's plan a stream where we play the game.
Yeah, we've done a lot of these online games. This would be like the biggest platform for it. I don't know if the game's ready for it, but I'd be happy to try it out.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob, so much. I'll be sure to share all your links. So folks, if you're watching this and want to connect either with Denny or Kaustubha, you can go ahead and link up. Don't forget to leave a star in the project. Go sponsor if you're able to. But I appreciate you, team. Thank you for being here today. We will see you next week for another open. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Bye.